Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Spirit Rescue Talk. I'm Amy Major. And of course, you know my co host, Gigi Breakville, Melinda Wolfram, and Cynthia Maroon. We are all here to discuss weird, spooky things with you, everything paranormal, spiritual out there that you may or may not hear from other podcasts. And if you do, don't worry, we're here for you. Come see us. We like to discuss things with you, but again, try not to use it as a form or replacement of proper education and training regarding your own spiritual practices and psychic development. Even though we like to give a lot of advice, it's always best to work one-on-one with a mentor or go to a class. And again, don't let our experience override your experience. I want you to know your own experience, your own gut instincts, your intuition is your truth. And I don't want us to make you feel that your truth is not valid. Everyone's truth is valid. So I just want you to know we're giving advice based on our experiences, but there are so many more truths out there. I want you to have confidence in what you're experiencing. And feel free to send us comments or questions because we love them. And if there's things that we talk about that you have questions on, send us your questions and we'll be happy to answer them here on Spirit Rescue Talk. And speaking of that, we did have quite a few people asking some questions, which Cynthia will go over. But one of the discussions that people really wanted us to talk about was protection. And that's one thing that's close to my heart, and of course to my co host, because you don't hear a lot about protection from some other mediums or spiritual gurus because as long as you maintain a certain proper vibrational frequency, protection isn't needed, which many of you are seeing and experiencing that may or may not be true. So we're just going to discuss a few scenarios, tell a few stories to explain why protection is still really needed, how important it is, and how to do certain protection techniques. Maybe we'll throw some of that stuff in here to kind of help you along with your journey. But protection is a very long, very detailed subject to talk about, which we can't talk about in just one show. So expect to see it in several different shows that we discuss in the future. This is kind of just an introduction to it. It's not going to give you everything you need, but it may be able to give you an awareness to be able to ask questions for us to discuss in other shows. So, and I know we were discussing before we kind of got started about different experiences with protection. And Gigi, I know that in the past when I had been interviewing you on Spirit Rescue Talk before, we were talking a lot about protection. A lot of people have been coming to you saying, I've had this experience, I've had that experience. And I had asked you before, and I'm going to ask you again, you had talked about how important protection is. So I was just kind of hoping you kind of started off with letting people know why you feel protection is important and maybe a couple of ideas and stories that you have regarding that.
Thank you. Protection is one of the biggest, for me, is one of the biggest things. And the teachings I've received, um, you don't do anything without a form of protection. And I know that some people will grab an amulet or they may have a feather or something. And that belief is in that item that you're holding. And so that energy of protection, I feel, is with you. I remember when I first started receiving teachings, I could not get a proper circle around me. And I turned to the person that was training me. I said, "Why is it a circle?
Mm.
Why can't it be a square? Why can't it be a triangle? I mean, is there like a handbook out there that says it has to be a circle?" And the person's like, I never thought about that. I've been in a lot of situations where I thought I had protection around me, and I've gotten attacked. I've gotten scratched. I've learned and built up the energy boundaries around me to where when I go to sleep at night, I don't wake up with scratches on me because occasionally I'd wake up with scratches on my shoulders and arms.
Mm.
And I do realize that sometimes spirit is trying to get your attention, their spirit's getting your attention. But then how do we know it's not something a little, a little lower vibrational that's doing something? I had figured out on one occasion that a fellow person that I knew was resentful of me and was sending something to me. And that's again, we need our protection. We definitely need our protection. I do work with a lot of clients, especially tribal people, on protection and setting boundaries. I call them energy boundaries. And these are set, and when we were discussing this before we started recording, I agree with you. It's not like, oh, okay, I have this and I'm all set. The intention has to be in there. The intention has to be in there. And it's kind of like lifting weights. I mean, you don't just start out with 200 pounds. You've got to work your way up until you get it. And I feel the same thing with energy. If you're not used to using that energy, you've got to build up to it.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. And a lot of people there, a question that I get asked a lot is, does the idea of needing protection create more of a threat in your vibration? Because what you're doing is you're setting the expectation that you're going to get attacked when you start thinking about protection. What do you feel about that?
I feel it's out of fear. If we have to set our protection out of fear, it's not as strong. It's a simple belief as if putting on my shoes and going outside, tying my shoes and going outside. I need my shoes to walk. Um,
That-
it becomes incorporated into you to where it's not, it's done like this is part of who I am. This is part of what I practice. This is part of what I teach. Um, so yeah, I think if it's guided out of somebody feeling I'm gonna get attacked, kind of like you're setting yourself up a little bit.
Right. So you're talking more about daily maintenance of your energy, your boundaries, and kind of controlling your energetic space as a form of, energetic maintenance and hygiene, as they say. So I think a lot of people come to the topic and discussion of protection thinking we have to defend ourselves against something, whereas protection is something very, not just that, but other things such as, well, when you're going and you're going to go in your car, you're going to put your seatbelt on. Does that mean you're preparing for an accident?
No,
Or are you putting your seatbelt on because it's just part of the daily chore, the daily maintenance of taking care of yourself and knowing you're in a safe place?
exactly. You nailed it perfectly.
What do you think, Melinda? What's the first thing that kind of comes to your mind when thinking about protection energetically?
So with what I do, I mean, I've done this most of my life, and I bring in prayers, and I do this every morning and every night. So it's not something that I had to sit there and think about. It's just an automatic. I use amulets, I use sigils, I use an array of things, essential oils, crystals. It's just my dream catcher. My dream catcher is my biggest thing. And so, it's not something that I sit and think, oh, I've got to do this to have the protection. It's more like a ritual or ceremony that I feel that is encasing me and my family and my loved ones, my friends, because I incorporate it for everyone. So it's almost like it's just second nature. It's not something I think about. I just do it.
Hmm. And I know with that, using those different tools, each tool carries a certain vibrational intention.
Exactly. I set those myself. And because everything that I use it uh for a whole week, and then I'll do a cleansing of all of it because I feel like over the period of the week, it develops its own connection. So then I want to start new every week. And that's one of the things I have always done ever since I was probably a teenager. And I've learned over that time span, and plus with the kind of work I do as far as the psychic detective work. I incorporate these things into the psychic detective work too to help me to bring in closures, for the families, to bring in, aspects of different avenues, because with that line of work, you're going to be getting some of the lower frequencies, you're going to bring in some of the higher frequencies. So I try to balance that using all of the different things, tools that I use.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really great because it's, but also, yeah, spirit's talking to me a lot today. They want you to bring up, um, people use tools, but not everybody believes in them.
Mhm.
What do you think that does to the tool itself if people are using it, saying the right words, but they're not actually really believing or understanding what that tool is really for? What do you think that kind of does to it?
I think that it makes the vibration lower. Because whenever I'm using my tools, it's like I said, it's sort of like I feel a sensation that runs through me when I'm using them. But that's because, I energize those with my own being. And that's the way I see it. I'm putting my vibration into it. So if you are doing it and using the tools and you're having a doubt, I do feel that it makes the vibration lower.
Mhm.
It does.
Whereas if you've got this going and this is really working and this is what you do and you make it part of who you are, then the vibrations of like to me it's just like astronomical. So
Yeah, well, I think people don't recognize that when you're using tools, it's a team effort. The tool and you are now forming a bond, an agreement with each other to emphasize a certain intention. And if only one half of the team is doing the job and you're not doing the job yourself, then don't expect to see the full results of what it is you're trying to accomplish. You have to match the vibrational frequency of the tool that you're using, believing in it, and merging your energies together to enhance that intention as well.
Amy, you just nailed it. That's exactly.
And I have to also point something out. While we use our dream catchers and we are told that they are to take the bad dreams away and let the good dreams trickle down into us, which is why we have it in a window or over our bed. Um, my Micmac cousins, we use it also in our doorways of every doorway we have
Well, I like
because
that.
it is actually a form of protection.
Now, do you
And
have a certain dream catcher that you use that you like? Is there any particular
I
crystal?
do, and I make sure all of mine actually come from Canada because I'm enrolled through I mean, we're in New Hampshire, out of New Hampshire, but we're enrolled, our ancestors come from Canada, and that's on my mother's side. But on my father's side, it's Cherokee with all this code, all this other stuff. And I don't know as much, but I go with what spirit guides me to do.
Hmm.
And so I have them everywhere on doors, over doors, front door, garage door. There is one, and I cleanse it and I charge it because it's true. I agree with Melinda. If we don't cleanse them, they build up energy
Mhm.
and they hold on to energy that doesn't need to be part of what we're doing.
Well, I think that's important to kind of state because there are quite a few tools out there that people use for protection. Some of them require charging and clearing. Others you're not supposed to touch at all because over time they charge themselves with a higher intensity of that intention. So if you do cleanse them, you're actually stripping away the properties of what you charged them with. So, and I think that's something we could discuss in a future show of like, hey, this is this tool. How do you use this? And this is another tool. How do you use that? And also having them at the door. I didn't know that. I think that's a really great tip to share with people. A lot of people don't really know much about dream catchers. You see them. So there's a lot of sensationalism that goes into a
Mhm.
lot of it. Some of it's true, some of it's not true. So maybe we might have a discussion in the future about some of these tools, about the true uses of them, maybe the history of them, and why they work as well as they do. I'd like to definitely discuss that for sure.
And I'm glad,
Cynthia.
hi, I'm glad we're bringing up like tools and stuff because I feel that for the community, it's something that's one of the first things that's accessible
Mhm.
when people are embarking on a spiritual journey are books and tools. And so they become familiar with them. So talking about them, things that are so accessible to people is really important. Clearing them understanding that these tools can build up energy over time and having a really good practice. Also, Gigi bringing up that, people when talk about protection, they also want to talk about their space It's not just spiritual protection for yourself or energetic protection for yourself, but sometimes we pray like for protection over things, like if we're going on a trip, our vehicle, or, other people, or like our home, our animals, all those kinds of things. So it's quite a broad topic, which even, why, which validates why Amy was saying, this might be something that you hear about in several podcasts down the road, because just as we're talking now, my mind is going to, yeah, what about spiritual protection when communicating with the other side, which we kind of dipped our toes into, I think, last talk. But one of the things that I was thinking about, I actually had this conversation last night with a friend of mine, where we were talking about how sometimes when you are, when you have a spiritual practice for a long time, you can develop like bad habits and cutting corners with things in your intention, because our lives are busy. We're not just sitting in our homes meditating all day. Like, we have lives, right? Some of us work, so we have families, we have things to do. And, but for those that consider their spirituality so important to them, they don't want to not set time aside. So sometimes processes can be rushed. So the conversation that we had was, that we actually were reminding ourselves that we need to step back, and we need to stop just going through spiritual protection in our mind. Where we sit down and we go, okay, I call in this for protection, da 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 da, and we go through our little list to make sure we check off all our little things. So we do all the right things. We're sitting here, we got the tools, da 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 da, and then we rush and we go into it. But what we didn't do is, did our frequency and our heart space match, everything that was coming out of our mouth or our mind? And I said, I think sometimes we can just be on autopilot a little bit. And that, so for me, a lesson that I was reacquainted with yesterday was just that I need to get still and take the time that I need to make sure that I'm reaching a frequency that holds my actual intention of what I'm asking for, and not rushing through things. And I said, and I was trying to brainstorm, and I was thinking, how can I remember to do that? What's a tool I could use to do that? And I thought, what? The breath. And that's what I came to, is that, how does my breath rate change when I actually get centered and I'm connecting with the divine truth of what I'm asking for in terms of protection and what have you? Is there a difference between the 3D breath rate that happens when I'm just going from one task to another, And so that's just for me personally, but that's, one of the things that I was, revisiting yesterday, actually, before, we even started talking about this today.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, because again, it's fitting the vibrational match of what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting, because when I first got it started in my work years ago, before I even knew that protection was even needed, I was faced with a lot of very heavy energy of spirits were coming around me. And so many people were coming and say, oh, you need to use this, you need to use that, all throwing all different types of tools at me. And so I would go in meditation, because I like confirmation. So I would go to my guides and say, what do you think? And they're like, nope, 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 nope. And I'm like, what do you mean? These are all tools that people use out there. And what they said to me was, there isn't a single tool that you can use out there that you don't already hold within yourself. And they said, you can use tools, but just remember, tools are there to amplify the energy you already hold. You should never be able to use a tool out there unless you think it's just going to work along with your own energy. So many people use tools feeling that they don't have that within themselves, so they have to find it somewhere outside of themselves to be able to have that protection. And I think that's where so many people are going wrong. And I did it wrong in the beginning too, because I thought I needed those crystals, or, different sigils and different things that I needed, because they were wonderful tools, because I didn't feel confident in myself. I didn't think that I had the power within me to protect myself. So I had to look for these tools outside of myself to create that power of protection. And my guides wouldn't let me use a single tool. They wouldn't. What they said is, when you find the power within yourself, you're going to recognize you don't need a single tool out there. And when you no longer need a single tool out there, well, then allow you to use the tool so it can just be a reminder to use it within yourself. They should be nothing more than reminders and amplifiers of what you can already do. So through the years, they started slowly showing me different techniques that I can do, mostly for my own self-empowerment, mostly for the emphasis of the power within my own energy, for the grounding and the shielding and the energetic stimulation and the mental thoughts and the emotional cleansing. All of these things my guides were teaching me about how I can claim ownership of my own energy. Because it said the greatest power you ever hold is your own light. The greatest power you'll ever hold is your reassurance that you have everything that you need already.
Mhm.
And that there isn't a single thing that anybody could ever do to you that you don't allow, consciously or unconsciously. And so that's how my protection got started a long time ago. I started collecting tools just because I thought they looked cool. Because my guides wouldn't show me how to use them. They're like, don't you touch it, not unless we think that you're ready, because you already have the vibrational frequency. So they would actually start showing me tools, and they'd put me through training where I had to vibrationally match my energy to that tool. I had to know how to actually amplify and project that energy into my space through my own energy. And then once I learned how to do that, they said, okay, pick up the tool. And I picked up the tool and it felt absence of energy because I had already been stronger than what that tool was. And they said, you have the power of 1,000 tools inside of you. Why would you go for something outside of yourself? And so that my guides are pretty critical when it comes to learning certain techniques. They're all about empowerment and letting you know that there isn't anything you can't do. So now I use tools just for stimulation and just as reminders, because like Cynthia was saying, we sometimes forget. We get into these routines and we've done things for so long. I went to bed the other night and I didn't put up my protection and didn't do anything, and a spirit came in and crept into my dream. I'm like, dang it, here you are. I could have protected myself and my guides are like, you're not doing the same techniques you did when, a long time ago when you were younger, because you got used to the idea of being protected, and they said, but now that you're not doing it and you haven't done it for some time, your vibration has changed. So now spirits are stepping in when they couldn't before because you don't have the energetic frequency around you of protection. So I was like, dang it, I have to start from scratch. And they're like, no, 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 no. You just have to remember there's certain things you need to do and set them up again. So that was a great lesson for me to know that we can set up a lot of protection techniques, but they will eventually dissipate over time if we're not using them.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to have techniques and have strategies, but not to get overwhelmed by them or think, oh my gosh, I have to do every little step in order for something to work. But at the same time, we have to make it easy enough so we can remember every day. So we're not caught in this, did I remember to do this? Did I remember to do that? Gigi, do you have any sort of strategies that you do or techniques that you do every day that's like really, really easy?
I'm listening to you and I'm like nodding, nodding, nodding because I'm like you. I don't feel the need to use a lot of tools or crystals or things like that. I mean, I have them, but I am guided not to because I've been told the same thing. It's within yourself.
Right.
Yes, I have, I have really, I just learned from a medicine man and storyteller. And this was passed on from another shamanic friend of mine to me. And and I started doing this, and I'm like, this is really easy. And I just simply say, what before I go to sleep, instead of going through all this ritual and feeling the pressure to do ritual, I just simply say, all loving spirits may remain, everybody else needs to go. And I find that I am not I'm not poked at in the middle of the night. No one's talking to me. No one's creeping into my dreams. The other thing that I was taught by my shamanic teacher was to also, we have our spirit guides, we have our spirit family, and they're there to help us. They're there to guide us and to help us. And there is nothing wrong with us turning and asking for help and saying, I ask St. Michael, can you please walk the perimeter of the house in every room to make sure we don't have any energies in here that do not belong here so that the family can sleep. And I don't do that every day, but I'm asking him for help, and he's doing it. And so we have to, I feel that sometimes we need to release a little bit and learn that our allies, our spirit guides, our angels, they're there to help us. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
No, nothing wrong with asking for help at all. And spirit is with you all the time, even when you don't feel like they are. And I was actually just teaching that to a student a few days ago because they kept asking, why am I so alone? Why don't they show up? Why don't they talk to me? Their guide came through very clearly and said, even when you think you're alone, you never are. So we are always with you. There is never a time when we are not with you. So be reassured, you are always surrounded by love. The only time you ever feel like we're not there is when you've actually created the energetic separation by believing that they're not there. You're actually creating the reality that they're not there with you, which pulls you into a lower frequency of isolation. And then fears start emanating from that feeling of isolation, creates a reality in which they are not there, even though they are. It makes you feel even more alone and more susceptible. So if you can get yourself into the idea and pattern of I'm always surrounded by love, no matter what, it starts, you move into a higher state of frequency. You move into the state of love and reassurance, and that changes your vibration immediately, which again is another tool because there's always protection there.
And I wanted to say something to our audience that, we're going around, we're talking about tools and stuff like that. And even though I 100% am in alignment with what we're talking about in terms it's all within you and all of that, tools are a great bridge sometimes, because I remember in my early days, what Amy described is exactly what was going on with me, like way back in the beginning. And it's like I was collecting all the tools I could because I just loved them. They were cool. I loved the idea of the energy behind them. But all the while, it was like it all had to be around me, but I wasn't paying attention to anything in here. It was more like I was getting my energy from them, and because I was using them to help get me into a state instead of acknowledging that it was coming from me. But I was also very solitary in what I was doing, and I didn't have a community that I could bounce these things off of. That didn't come until later. And so if you're sitting there and you're like, oh my gosh, that's me, I got all these tools, it's like, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Have all your tools, enjoy them. People, some people who are entrepreneurs create them with passion and very good energy to sell, and you want to support. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you don't lose sight of where the real power is, and that's within you, which kind of leads to another aspect of spiritual protection, which is making sure that you have somewhat of a, I don't want to say a healthier relationship with yourself, as more as you're always on this journey of having some type of healing within yourself that empowers you in some way. And when I was going through my training with Amy, she used to use this analogy of, you have this beautiful apple on the outside and how good is, and it looks perfect. But if the inside is rotten, there's no way you're going to enjoy this apple. There's no way this apple is going to be strong. It's all basically smoke and mirrors. You actually have to have a very strong internal core. And so I would encourage people to really acknowledge that and get curious about it. If it's something you've never thought about before, is start thinking about your own relationship with yourself, because the human experience is difficult. And there's a lot of suffering in the human experience in different ways. Sometimes it's the suffering people bring upon people, and sometimes it's just natural suffering, like through illness or childbirth or the loss of a loved one. That's also part of the human experience. So, like your energy tools can accumulate things over time, so can your energy body with all the hardship or all the struggle that you go through. And that too needs to be cleaned, right? So, it's up to you to explore those ways, but that is a perspective of spiritual protection, is doing your own wound healing. And I just kind of wanted to bring that up. And I know for myself, I've worked in jobs where I'm dealing with a lot of people that are going through a lot of suffering, and so I have to be aware of what I'm taking on energetically from others, and making sure that I'm taking care of myself. And I know Melinda, she does the same thing. She has in her practice, and I'm curious about what you do to take care of yourself, Melinda, in terms of protection.
Well, there's different things that I do, but the one thing that I have found is using my own breath in the wording that I say. So I have this that I say every morning and every day, and every night, and it's called I Walk in Beauty. And so it's about it's coming from within. And then that's when I come in and I use the tools, but I always say this first because I walk in beauty. I walk in beauty before me. I walk in beauty behind me. I walk in beauty beside of me. I walk from beauty from within. And so when I say that, that brings in all of my power as far as my protection. So again, it's just like you guys are saying, it does come from within, and it's just using my own breath, I feel, is bringing in the bigger protection. And then I bring in, after I say that, I do use like Palo Santos to clear my space, to make sure the vibrations clear there. But again, it's to me, it's all about your own vibration and what you bring with what you breathe out.
I love that. But
Yeah.
I want everyone to remember, though, that we can't be empowered and strong and reassured all the time. Like Cynthia was saying, we live in a physical world with the human experience, and it can be really, really difficult to manage your emotions all the time. And I don't want people to feel like really down on themselves, thinking, I can never get to that, or I can never feel that strong about myself or my own empowerment and energy. It's a process. It's a journey of self-discovery. It's a journey of understanding who you are, why we're here, how our energy works, how we're all connected, and how we're all protected. It's what you have to learn so much more about yourself to truly understand the full essence of everything in order to receive that empowerment. It's more than just saying, I am strong, I am wise, I am brave, because you're stating these things, but do you actually understand the full meaning of that and why it is true? It is more than just your experience in this life. It's the accumulation of all the experiences of all your lives, all the wisdom, all the growth, all the evolution of your soul, and the full empowerment of who you are as a spirit in the light. And it takes time for you to recognize the full journey of the soul in order to really find the true empowerment you need, so that you don't need these tools until you find yourself in that position. It could take a lifetime of journey to explore. Using these tools are a great way for you to be able to enhance the energy when you can't find it within yourself. It's perfectly fine to say, I can't do this right now. Because you need to value your time, your attention. You need to find self-love for yourself, which means respecting the fact that some days are just going to be harder than others. And it's okay. And that's why we have community. That's why we have friends. That's why we have books and videos and different tools to use, so we can find that outside of ourselves on days that we just can't muster up the energy to do it. We're not going to be perfect all the time. Even those of us that have mastered this, and most of us haven't, We're still going to have days where we're human and where our emotions are low and we're feeling really fatigued. We just can't do it that day, or we forget something because, we had bills to pay and jobs to go to. It's not easy. But what we are trying to do is say, understand it's possible. Understand it's probable, and you will find this one day within yourself if you haven't already. But know that protection is more than just preparing for an attack. Protection is more of and I like the word safeguarding more than I like the word protection, because safeguarding is essentially say, I'm charging my energy for the day. I'm setting my intention. I know exactly what I'm preparing myself for, realizing the world's just going to throw something at me, but it's okay. I'll be ready. I have everything that I need to get through any situation that this universe can throw at me because I'm strong enough. And just having that mindset is enough to say, I am safeguarded for the day. There isn't anything that can happen to me that I don't allow. And this sets up the energetic protection within yourself. And sometimes that's all you need.
I have a question for everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
So in the opening, Amy made a comment about us talking about all things spiritual and paranormal. So this is a little spooky question. So I think some people might be curious about what happens if I think I have something scary in my place? What happens if I don't feel safe because I'm hearing something knock on the wall, or something's moving, or I'm feeling afraid? What do you say like in terms of spiritual protection? What would you offer to somebody who is concerned about that, feeling like their space is no longer safe? How would you encourage them to have spiritual protection or apply that in that situation?
Let's throw that one at Gigi. What do you think, Gigi?
She throws it at me.
I can go for hours
I'm
with
thinking
that.
about, I've had it happen to myself, to where I was actually being trained by somebody that I thought was an ethical person to train me. And I was in my 30s. And she put me in a situation that something came home with me. I felt it move my hair around my neck. And I remember intuitively going, there's something here with you. And I didn't think anything of it. And then I woke up. My husband would go to work very early. I woke up and I couldn't move because it was sitting on my chest. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't let me up. And I remember my cat was sitting next to me just staring at it. And I'm asking my cat, I'm like, Buddha, can you help me, please? But he didn't. I know. He just, And I was petrified because I knew this was something that was a lower vibrational thing. Mm-hmm. And I finally was able to get it off me. And I did the next best thing. And at the time, I wasn't using my sage. I was using Palo Santo, but I went around blessing the whole house. Usually if somebody comes to me, and I've have them come to me saying, I don't know if there's anything in my house, I just do the work for them. And doesn't matter how far, like you said, Amy, it doesn't matter how far they are. It doesn't mean I have to fly out there, but I can do the shamanic work to talk to the ancestors of the house, talk to the spirits of the house, and find out what's going on. Because sometimes it's hard for people. It's scary when you have knockings on walls and you're hearing doors close and you're hearing these things. And the first question is, well, wait a minute, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to scare the person, or are they trying to get their attention? And if they're trying to get the attention, why are they getting the attention of the person? And I know it's hard for the person that's living in the house, depending on what their personality's like. Many people are running scared. And when you're running scared, I feel like fear is a clogs up the intentions and the information you're trying to get. A lot of times I would tell the person, first thing I would tell them to do is to open all the windows and sage. Let's get whatever's in there out. But we also need to find out what is in there and why it's in there. So I would say I would just go out. I would just go and help the person. And I would walk them through this. And the first thing I would find out is why is this happening? Who is this? One of the paranormal teams I was on, he was giving a class and he says, just because you see a dark shadow doesn't mean it's somebody evil, and you don't want to accidentally banish your Aunt Betsy to hell, because you're freaking out over what you're seeing. So I think let's err on the side of let's find out what it is, because it may be a relative, and it may be also, yeah, something just happened to come in. We have it happen here all the time, as I know all of you do. You just have a spirit that wanders in and it's like knocking things and doing stuff, and it's like, okay, you want my attention, what is it you need?
Very good. I like that. It's for that question, it started out with intention. That's the way my guides taught me, because I was having spirits left and right, all over the place, come into my space, especially when I awakened to the idea that I was a medium. And spirits knew I was a rescue medium before I did. I had no clue what was going on. And I would have so many heavy spirits coming around me in my space. And I would start yelling at them and getting them and trying to like throw white light at them. And it was just, I felt like I was under attack all the time. And my guides would stop and they would like, why are you doing this? I'm like, because they're bad. And they're like, what makes you think that? I'm like, because they're heavy. And other people are telling me that heavy is bad. and my guides are like, well, first of all, half of the heaviness you're experiencing is your own energy. You have something around you, your vibration drops into a state of fear, because your normal primal instinct is to be on alert if there's something around you that you don't understand. So you immediately go into that primal state of fear. That immediately drops your vibrational frequency, which makes everything else around you that's dense seem more appeared to you. So you actually see it more, it's more intensified. So now you're seeing the dense energy, you're in a dense space yourself, you're in a state of fear, everything becomes worse than what it really is. And they were explaining this to me in like an instant. I was like, oh. And they said, we want you to pay attention to things. And this is the best way to gauge whether something's bad or not. They said, when something's around you that's heavy, do you feel fear or do you feel threatened? Because those are two very different sensations in your primal energy. When you're feeling threatened, you immediately feel like something's about to attack you. It's an energetic response. Your body, and through evolution, has been programmed to sense when that's about to happen. When you're in a state of fear, that's a recognition that there's something around you don't understand, and you immediately have to be on alert because you don't know what to expect. So they said, pay attention. Do you feel afraid or do you feel threatened? If you feel threatened, that's a good way to gauge whether there's something there that's going to harm you or not, and that it's actually something bad. If you don't feel threatened, but you feel fear, that's when you need to investigate more and find out what is really there. Why is it dense? Step into it, read it with protection, with calling in your ancestors or spirits that are around you for backup to say, hey, stand with me here while I read this energy so I know I'm safe and I'm protected. Read the energy, investigate it a little bit more, find out what it truly is first. Once you know what it is, the fear drops. You're no longer in that primal state of alertness. You're now more in a receptive state of saying, I now know what this is. I can do something about it. And all the fear and all the darkness and all that dense energy starts to fade away because you are now in a different vibration of receptivity. So that's what I would do. Melinda, what would you do if you had kind of a negative spirit, which I'm sure you have, step into your space?
I basically do just like you and Gigi. I mean, first fill out what it is. I want to make sure you know what kind of energy it is, because if you are fearful that that's where you're good, you can mess up and you think it's something that's really dark and it's going to be there to harm you. When in fact, most of the time what I've encountered is once I figured out how to control my fear, then that's when the truth of the situation came out. And most of the time, it's just a situation where it's a darker entity or a darker form that needs some assistance of some kind. And once that fear is stabilized, then you're able to see the difference of what's happening there.
Mhm.
A lot of times I've worked with paranormal teams just like Gigi, and they every time they're like, Melinda, we need you to come in. We know we've got something demonic. And out of all of my time of doing this, I've only seen something demonic once. And that was just, a situation that was brought there due to a lot of different factors. But, just to sit there and say, to deem everything as something that's demonic or of a negative experience, if you bring that in and not give the opportunity to try to decide what is happening, then that's where there's going to be some issues that's going to develop. So I agree with you, Amy and Gigi. Make sure that you see what's there, what energy is there, and then go from that point to try to resolve what's happening in the home.
I think that happens so often about people saying, oh, it's dark, it must immediately be a demon.
That
That's the first thing. And unfortunately, a lot of people teach that. Unfortunately, I see a lot where, even dense spirits that come in, they have to have a demonic attachment to that spirit to create such a dark energy about them. But you know what? I've seen more darkness in the human soul than I have actually seen in demons. So it isn't necessarily the fact that it is a demon. It could just be a lot of dark energy from a lot of negative thoughts and emotions from a spirit. And yes, there are negative spirits out there more than there are demonic entities. Demonic entities are actually very rare. So I don't want people thinking, oh, if they do exist, then they can be in my house right now. Well, not necessarily, because it is so rare, you have to look at all the parameters that exist with it. You know, demons are very political.
Mhm.
They're there for a specific reason, and it has nothing to do with you. So don't think that they're just coming in because they want to. You're most likely going to attract spirits that are around because they're either looking for resolution, they're looking for help, or they are looking for harm. And if they are looking for harm, you're going to have that sensation of feeling threatened. You're immediately going to know, I need some extra assistance in here. And I don't want people thinking that they should do it alone. Even some of the best mediums out there, they get help from other mediums when they are feeling threatened, because these spirits, they like to get around the rules and do things they're not supposed to be doing. The more informed you are and the more help you get, helps see you through that situation.
And I got to mention on a previous podcast that I was watching with Amy, she was interviewing somebody on a previous Spirit Rescue Talk podcast. And they were convinced they had demonics like in their home and this and that. Okay. And they had previous people in there confirming that, this and that. But when Amy was reading the room, she was like, does this happen? And he's like, yeah. Does that happen? Yeah. And then happens around there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's not a demon, but they like the fact that you think it's a demon. They're just like a bunch of troublemakers. So it is important to like not exacerbate your fear by going right to 100 and assuming it's the worst thing that you can imagine. And it's also okay at the same time to have a healthy sense of caution when something unusual is happening around you, but stay grounded. And also, we talked about that core, stay in your power. You are the authority over your space, not them. And so, even though we've given examples like read the energy, if you're sitting here going, I don't know how to do that, that's okay. There are authorities on the other side that when you say, I don't want this thing in my space, this is a violation of my free will, can the most appropriate person come in and remove this? You're going to get assistance. They're not going to be like, figure it out yourself, So I don't want people to be a little bit too worried, because there was a time where I didn't know how to read energy. I didn't know how to link in and figure out what was there. I would have been just scared out of my mind and trying to figure it out and hoping it doesn't happen again tonight, kind of a thing. So
Yeah, but it's also very rare to have such negative energy around you. The majority of people that are actually attracting a lot of what we call dense vibrational spirits, you're all natural healers, because what attracts the wounded more than anything else is the healing light that's within you. So if you don't know you're a medium, if you don't know you're a natural healer, know by what you attract. If you bring a lot of people into your life that are wounded and you're constantly trying to help them out, that's an indication you're a healer. If you're attracting a lot of spirits around you that are in the light and they're just talking to you all the time, indication you're a medium. Now, if you're a healer and a medium, there's a very good chance you have a lot of wounded souls that are in the astral plane looking for assistance. So you're going to attract a lot of those lower vibrational spirits around you. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It doesn't mean they're coming to attack you. It means that they're looking for help. And if they just keep coming one right after the other and you just can't seem to get rid of it, maybe it's trying to tell you something about yourself. We all come in with a vibrational match, whatever that match is. Many of us are healers, we're artists, we're doctors, we are architects. We all carry a vibrational match within us that actually projects out a type of personality that we have or what we're here to do. If you're projecting an energetic match of being a healer or a protector or a medium or anything of a higher vibrational frequency, you're going to attract spirits, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen. Now, you have the choice. You can say, because we have free will, saying, I don't want this around me. I don't want anything to do with it. I tried that for a few years. It didn't work for me because I had such a strong contract to do this work. My guides are like, you're not getting out of it no matter how I try. So forget it. But those of you that don't have the contract of doing this thing, you guys, I just can't do it. I just don't want these spirits around me. Then go back to your guides, your angels, even if you don't know how to sit with intention and state, I need help. I need assistance. I need extra protection around me until I decide whether this is right for me or not. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to take a pause of it and say, I need time to reflect and to think about what I truly need for myself. And you need to be able to think about it when you're not under attack or where you don't have spirits around you all the time because you're in reactive mode. You can't think clearly when you're in a response of fear. So it's okay to just pause everything, ask for your guides to kind of step in and say, I need a little extra help right now so I know the right decision to make for myself. If you decide you don't want anything to do with spirits, make that known to your guides, make that known to the universe. I say no, I choose no, I don't want anything to do with this. And they will listen, mostly. They will listen. But if you do decide you want to do more of this, but you just don't know how to control the energy, that's where training is needed. You know, this is a very hard form of mediumship to do, rescue mediumship or any type of energy clearing work with spirits. I don't recommend that people do this on their own. I don't recommend that they learn how to do it all on their own. That's why I've built communities for people to talk and connect with each other. Help is always around you. Don't try to feel like you have to do this on your own because we always make mistakes. We don't always know what we're doing, and we certainly don't always how to set up our boundaries and keep ourselves feeling reassured that we're safe. Even though safety is always there, if we don't feel it, it won't show itself to us. So get the help you need, get some training, get some mentorship, listen to more podcasts, but mostly reach out. Reach out and feel like you are getting the assistance you need, the help that you need. You should never have to feel alone. So, but I know that we didn't have any emails this week, Cynthia.
Well, we had some people interested in spiritual protection. So I'm glad that we took the time to cover it. And I know that there was some feedback. They even around our backgrounds or lighting and things like that. And I just love the fact that people are interested enough that they want to see us better. They want to, so that's great. You just email us at spiritrescuetalk@gmail.com. Any feedback, questions that you might have, we read all the emails, we discuss it, and we try to bring as many as we can forward. I know next week we're thinking about talking a little bit more about spiritual protection, but from the perspective of when you're looking for services from other psychic mediums or mediumship, for whether it be readings, house clearings, things like that, just tips that we want to offer because there are some people, and it's sad to say, but are not entirely in their integrity or genuine about what it is that they're offering. So we want to maybe give you some tips around what to look out for when you're searching for services yourself.
Absolutely. Client protection is extremely important.
Yeah.
How to know the red flags or how to see them if something's legit or not. And we're not saying that there are certain mediums that aren't legit, but there are certain things that mediums do that may not be as moral as others. And so we're just going to give you our opinions about what to look out for and how to know if something is fair or not. And everybody charges something different. Everybody works in a different way, but we're here to help give you just a general rule of thumb of how to know if you're safe and protected while looking for a psychic and medium as well. So I'm actually really looking forward to that discussion. I've had a lot of people come to me throughout the years, and I have a lot of opinions about that myself. So we'll kind of see how that discussion goes. I think we had a great discussion today. What do you guys think?
It was completely amazing. I agree totally with you, Amy.
Yep. I think it could go so much further too.
Yeah, I was just going to
Yeah.
say the same thing, that I feel like it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like there's a lot that you can branch out and end up discussing around this topic.
We
Mhm.
do. We don't want to like talk your ear off in one time. So,
Yeah.
but send us questions because your questions will help us brainstorm a little bit more about certain things that we should talk about, because these discussions can go in so many different directions, and I could talk for hours. Ask Cynthia, she knows, with my classes. I could just go off on a tangent with certain things. So send us your questions, your comments, because it really does help us know what information you're looking for. We're here to help. But thank you for joining us this week. I just want to say it's great having you all here with us, and we look forward to seeing you guys next time.